All right, I welcome you once again to this week's edition of the Training and Refresher program. And I want to appreciate everyone for joining the call, especially those who joined earlier. But for the past 2 weeks now, we have had the habit of uh, joining even before the time. That's very good. It shows we are all expectant and we are finding value, good value in what we are doing. So if you can hear me and hear me clearly, can you kindly give me a reaction, possibly a thumbs up? All right, all right. I can see you can all hear me. Good. On that note, I'll like to welcome you again and appreciate you for what you have been doing, especially in the network, for, for your contributions, for your participation, and most especially for giving your time every week. Those of you who join regularly to join in this call and this program. So as you all know, the network is a three objective network. Number one objective is for networking, which we're already doing. We have a platform already running on WhatsApp, and we are over 200 professional accountants, and we are networking and networking well, and things are running well. Then our second objective is a charge to one another to upskill and training, and that is why we are here this evening. Um, we're bringing resource person from within us and from outside our network to come and tell us and to come and put in our minds the needs to upskill and tell us what because we have specialties. We are all in different fields of accounting, so we want those who are experts in the or specialists in a particular aspect to come and tell us what um, what's going on in their specialty, and to remind us the need to be a consummate accountant. Because it's good to, as you know, as a consummate accountant is one who knows a little of many things. So you are well aware of many things. All right. So next, I'd like to specially congratulate our members that just got admitted into our Noble Institute as associate members, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. We in the Prosin Network, we congratulate everyone that was inducted on Wednesday. This Wednesday, what's the date? Just a moment, let me check the date. The date was 13th of May. Members who were inducted on the 13th of May as associate members to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. We in the Prosin Network, we actually congratulate you, and we celebrate your resilience, your effort, your sacrifices, financial and otherwise, that you have put in to attain this status. And we also extend our appreciation to those who were part of your journey, your parents, your guardians, your mentors. They are also part of this feat. So we congratulate you all. Next, we also wish our members who are writing ICANN exams this week, beginning Tuesday 19th, that as you write your exams, I pray that you come out in flying colors and you make good success at the end of the exams. So we know this week is going to be very busy for you, and we pray that as you get into the exam hall, you are able to write what you know, and you're able to manage yourself and manage your time, and express yourself the way you would want to express yourself without tension, without fear, without anxiety. So next is recap. If you study what we've been doing so far, follow the trend, what I've been doing so far, we've been talking about SMEs, SMEs, and SMEs. And why are we talking about SMEs? Number one is our stepping stone to greater engagement, which is dealing with bigger corporations. Then it's also there's a lot of SMEs, millions, tens of millions of SMEs in Nigeria that that need our services a lot. And you agree with me that the majority always have their way, minority have their say. So if SMEs are the majority and they are the emphatic majority in the Nigerian business landscape, so we want to give them attention. That's why you see all our topics have been on SMEs and SMEs, and there's a destination we are going to, and that's why we are focused on SMEs now. And you agree with me, even we accountants, most accountants in Nigeria are employed by SMEs. Only few, only a fraction are employed by large corporations. So that's why SMEs are very, very uh, important and integral part of the business structure or landscape of Nigeria. So last week we have financial opportunities available to SMEs and professional accountants. This week we're having account receivable and account payable management in Nigerian SME. Next week we're going to be having pension schemes and the SMEs. So, and right after it, we're going to be having structures, which is on the 31st of May, structures. So a lot of things lined up. And one advantage you have in this network is that we have our sessions recorded that members can participate in retrospect. So today, let me quickly, I always have a session with before our resource persons come in, just quickly, because our resource person is going to be coming in by, coming up stage by 5:30 p.m. So before then, I always like to give us a charge, which is very important because although some of us we may target like granular speech or granular session, but I don't think that way. It's more than granular. It's more, granular is just like something sweet, something diplomatic. It's more than diplomacy. It's a charge. Beyond there's an aspect of accounting that of ICANN syllabus. I think in the SB strategic business reporting, we used to be corporate reporting. We talk about beyond reporting. So this session is just like beyond the accounting profession. There are some things, I've been talking about consummate accountants, been talking about things that we need to do, outside accounting before that will make us, do well in our accounting profession. Because if you're an effective person, an effective entity, there's a lot of chances that you're going to be an effective accountant and effective anything you do. So it's not about being effective in an accounting and being ineffective in other areas. An effective person, becomes effective in most of what or all what he does. So on that note, we're going to be looking at shortly at the just a moment. Responding to the call of leadership. Responding to the call of leadership. Well, it's not a lengthy speech. It's something I'm going to do within a few minutes. And it's just a charge for us to respond to societal needs. Yeah, so if we have been in Nigeria. I know last week and 2 weeks ago, I've been saying that I've been around in Nigeria for a while. I grew up in Lagos. I went to school in Lagos, all my school, primary, secondary, university in Lagos. I only went outside Lagos to serve in Benue State. So I know Lagos so well. Like you're talking about experience. I have more than 35 years experience. I have almost 40 years experience as a Lagosian. So if somebody has almost 40 years experience on a job, that person, you want to listen to him. That's just by the way, though. All right. So what I want us to draw attention to is that there are deficits, there are gaps in Nigeria that there are gaps in Nigeria that we need to fill or that should be filled. And those gaps, we can all see it. For instance, there's leadership gap, which we want to talk about today. There's clearly leadership gap, and it's very important. Although there are other gaps, what are the other gaps? The power gap, for instance, electric power gap. So, for instance, Nigeria is currently generating 2,900 to 4,300 megawatt of electricity. And our population is well over 200 million. And the installed capacity of power generation in Nigeria, installed means the total capacity, the highest Nigeria can produce in terms of power is 13,625 megawatts. So our capacity is 13,625. What we are producing is just less than 4,300, and we are over 200 million. So you can see that gap. This is a serious problem. You can see there's no doubt about it. There will be a lot of issues in the economy of this particular country. I'm even talking as a neutral person. Let's assume it's another country. 13,000 installed capacity, 4,300 operating capacity, 220 million people. So you know that there's a lot of problems. There are a lot of problems, and that's why we're having issues in terms of electricity in Nigeria. And if you compare this to South Africa just has 60 million people. 60 million people, and they are generating 50,000 megawatts of electricity. Just 60 million. Divide 60 million, divide 200 million by 60, 220 by 60. You know the multiples you will get of that. So it shows you that there's a big gap in the power sector, and it is really evident and affecting many issues in Nigeria and affecting businesses also. That's why some entrepreneurs are finding it very challenging and are looking at alternative sources of power, which is solar, which is not cheap. To install a functional solar power system that will power minimal devices, you need at least above $1 million. That's about 800 USD or so, almost 1,000 USD. And how many SMEs can afford that on power? So the next gap is housing. There's housing gap in Nigeria. Housing gap. For instance, Nigeria housing gap is between 14.9 million and 15 million. That means the houses we have in Nigeria now, the people we have and the people we have in Nigeria needs about 15 million houses. So that means there's a lot of overpopulation or overuse or stretch of houses. If you stay in Lagos, you agree with me. Somebody one time said Lagos was smelling, and the internet went against that person. The person said Lagos was smelling, and the internet went against that person. Why would you say Lagos is smelling? Of course, like I used to say that, see, if you want to contribute to or to criticize, you have to criticize constructively and in proper context, so that people social media doesn't run away with one part and they leave the other part, even though that's what they're always doing. You have to come in the right context. If you agree with me, some parts of Lagos smell. Truly, I can say, because I've been in Lagos for almost 40 years. So I can tell you this, and I'm not afraid to be quoted or to be dragged online. You know why? Because there is housing deficit, housing gap. Because normally we're just a building where just about 15 people should stay. You find 60 people staying there, and these 60 people, the facilities are only for 10 people. 60 people are using facilities, so you can tell that place should smell. In addition to some habits like dumping of refuse in the drainage system, and other things that people do and make everywhere smell. So those are reasons. Those are the effects of this gap in housing. So you can see that the housing, there are so many gaps. Just to point out to the power and the housing, but the real gap that is really the issue for me, that is the one that is my own concern, is the leadership gap. The leadership gap. You will agree with me that if you look at the Nigerian society now and see what our young people are doing, It just tell you, when I say so, I like to paint the real picture. I'm a Christian, and we don't, the kind of Christian that I am, we don't talk about negativity. But most of the time, because I'm a professional, we can't run away from facts. Even though we're always saying, like the former president of the United States says that, okay, President Barack Obama was saying that, okay, while we hope for the best, we prepare for the worst. It's like, if you are being optimistic, if you are being granular, no problem, but also prepare for something wrong that can come up. So when I say something, people say, God forbid. See, the way the youth are now, that just tell you exactly how Nigeria will be in 15 years time, in 20 years time. The youth you see now, they are either smoking. In fact, now there are some, when I was growing, there's some drugs you don't even see. We only see them in the movie. And the one they show in the movie is just like just a fake, just to show us how it is. But all these things we used to see then, we see people, use them live, unapologetically in the society. And these are young people. Most of them are young people. They call them shisha. They all manner of things, all manner of drugs. Young 13, 14, especially in Lagos. And you see these sachets, they have even brought it down that you can even see for, I don't know how much they sell it, the sachet. You see, when you go to some car parks or motor parks, you see sachets. People consume all these things. Young people, adults. But my concern is the young people, because even on the internet, you see what they do on the internet. Why are they behaving this way? They are behaving this way because they have not been well led. There's problem of leadership in Nigeria, and it's from the top. Problem of leadership. There's nobody to look up to, because we are a product of our environment. Even in their environment, their brothers, their mothers, even their mothers are even their mothers. Who are the mothers? The mothers are those who were born in the 90s. They are the ones giving back to the children we have now. So they too didn't even probably get. They are also messed up. They are messed up. I'm not talking about few. Of course, you can say not everybody, but we are talking about majority here. It's a majority. It's a game of number. Talk about majority. So you can say, okay, some people are different, but that's not what I'm trying to say. We're looking at majority. Because when I was in school one time, just a moment, when I was in school, so I did something, and I was in GSS 3 particularly, and somebody lied against me and said, okay, I did something, but I didn't do it. I was so sure I didn't do it. But not knowing that this person has gone to talk to my other classmates to gang up against me and say that I did it. And those people who were saying, it was not a game of number. We have majority saying he did it, and a few saying he didn't do it. And of course, majority will always have their way in the first instance, like on the surface. And I was punished. Even till date, the teacher never got the truth. But I know I didn't do it. I was so sure I didn't do it. So you can imagine, if you're saying there are few people who are doing well, they are doing that, no, it's a game of number. So that's why, let me give you another example. Look at, I'm a Bible, I've always been saying it. I say it unapologetically. I'm a Bible addict. And I can give you an example in the Bible. If you look at Lot in the Bible, he found himself in a community, in a community of perverts, Sodom and Gomorrah. And an angel of God came to visit him, and he was just, and they appeared to be men. Angels, they look beautiful, and the men said they wanted to have their time with the angels. And Lot came out and started begging them, came out and started begging, please don't, these men are special people, they are great people, don't have the time with them, don't have sex with them. You know what, I will give you my daughter. You can do whatever you want with my daughter. Can you imagine that? This is a righteous man that is offering his daughter to people that want to pervert people so that they can leave the angels. He compromised. Why? Because he's a minority. because majority are perverts. So that's why I say it's not about few people are doing well. No, it's a game of number. So if you don't rise up now, it's just like I said earlier, what you are saying now is exactly the future. The majority, what you are seeing on the internet, the trend where people, where instead of focusing on what will benefit them, they are doing talking trend, they are doing to dance challenge, shake bum challenge, all those things. That is exactly what the future. There's no sugarcoating. Although I'm not saying there won't be intervention, but God can intervene. But we will not always have to need intervention. You can make the normal, you can make good things or miracle normal by doing all these things. So why I'm saying these things, we are professional accountants, all of us, there's in life, there are different levels of metamorphosis. Some of us, like I was telling somebody a while ago, and I see this life is very unique, and it depends on individuals. Everybody has a race, depending on our background. Some of us were born in a family where we have, our parents are doing fine financially, and of course now to rise through the rank is very easy. School fees, what to eat, where to go, the schools to go, and all those things, they are not issue. We just quickly rise. Some of us, we didn't have some people probably didn't have parents who are rich, but we have uncles that are exposed. They help us one way or the other, and with advice and sometimes with money, then we're able to make sure. Some of us don't even have any of these things, but we start, I say, we must be determined to be professionals. So that's why you can see that life is different for each person. So that's why it's not even good to say, oh, my friend is doing fine. Look at me, God, when you will you pick my call? Those things they say on social media. God, when now, or when, how now, or when, they say, when they say it, God, when, or God, pick my call. All those things, because they are comparing instead of them to look at what they are doing and compete with their past. They are comparing other people, not knowing that everybody's, everybody have different advantages and different history or trajectory. Now, I was listening to Mrs. Kemi Adeosun of the former finance minister for Nigeria, and he was speaking at the platform where Mr. Tosin Olorun that was talking, because I got interested in that program because I wanted to find out more. And she said something that, see, many businesses, some people just see one business and go and jump into it. And say, this person is doing fine in this business. They don't know that some businesses are run on subsidy. For instance, you see a very on Awolowo way, Ikoyi, you see some there. If you go, that place very well, there's some interior decoration shop. You see furnitures, expensive furnitures on that street. I'm like, this is a business doing fine. You may not know that maybe it's the wife of a senator that set up, that whose husband set up that place for her, and she's doing fine and be able to cover some costs and all of those things. And he's just practically running on subsidy. And you are here trying to compare yourself. You are not running on subsidy. Nobody is sponsoring you. You are just on your own, thriving. And you have one business maybe at Bariga, and you are comparing yourself with that kind of person. That's an unfair competition. That is comparing like with unlike. So why am I saying this? We are at different levels of our professions, and we must, success is in stages. Some of us have had AAT, some of us have ICANN, some of us are fellows and all of that. The success is in levels. But what I'm just trying to charge us is that, see, at every level you have, ensure you reach out to the younger ones, encourage them. Let me give you just a moment. Let me give you a scripture of the Bible. I know some of us are Muslims, but you agree with me that this is true. Peter, if you read the Bible very well, you know that there was a time Jesus wanted to go to the cross, and he was trying to encourage Peter that, see, hard times are coming, but be prepared. Let me read exactly what he said in Luke 22:32, Message translation. He said, Jesus was talking to Peter. He said, but I have prayed for you, Peter, that your faith won't fail. And when you come to your senses, help your brothers. So the same charge, when you attain level of success, help your brothers, help the younger ones, help them. Because if you don't help them, they are your future. We are going to be living, God will spare our life. We are going to be living in the next 15, 20 years. The kind of thing you are saying now, the majority of the things, that trend that's going on, what you are saying now, Big Brother Niger, that they're excited, that is the reflection of what will happen in the future. No cap. So at different levels of our successes, let's reach. I know some of us will sell courses, because I can understand to get all these things, to be qualified, all these things, it takes a lot. But nonetheless, let us reach out to these young people. They need leadership. That's why they are doing the wrong things they are doing. All right, let me stop this. I've taken 1 minute of the session of our resource person. So now I'd like to introduce our resource person, who is available. Our resource person is available with us here, and I have the pleasure to introduce him to us. He's going to be talking to us about account receivable and account payable management in Nigerian SMEs. I was having a session with somebody, just an ICANN student. I was trying to explain account receivable and payable. And I see, all this, some of this, I like some by the way, just a moment, apologies to our resource person. I like this system the Igbos adopt in training those who are into business. Where they admit some young guys or young girls to learn to be with them, and after sometimes they learn trade and they settle them and all of that. That's what Nigeria even need that, because that system is working. I know I said this because on Third Mainland Bridge or in some places in Lagos, you see some guys who carry bags of gala and just chips and all of those things they sell on the streets. And I understand that they don't actually pay for those things. Some of them don't pay for those things. They just collect them on credit worthiness, and they make the sales and now remit the money and remove their profit and remit the cost to their suppliers. So I was trying to explain how account receivable and account payable came up to somebody, and I gave that instance. So a resource person, account receivable and account payable, they are things, they are subject we cannot run away from in business, because you are dealing with customers, you are dealing with suppliers, and most of the time there's no cash and carry. Although you have some business who are supermarket that they do cash and carry. But if you agree with me that you want to expand your business and deal with a lot of persons, you have to do sell on credit. So in selling on credit and buying on credit, they will have account receivable and account payable. And to do proper justice to this, we have our resource person in the person of Mr. Omoniyi Modede. Mr. Omoniyi Modede is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountant, FCCA. He's also an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He has master's degree in development finance, MDF. He's a former associate assurance services, Ijewere and Co. And I know some of us are ICANN people here. We know Mr. Ijewere, the late Mr. Ijewere. The late Mr. Ijewere used to be, was the 32nd president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. So our resource person has worked in his professional accounting firm. Now, our resource person also is a former assistant manager of PricewaterhouseCoopers Nigeria, PwC Nigeria. He's also a former manager at Ernst & Young Nigeria, EY Nigeria. Currently, he's an audit manager at PwC UK, Birmingham, England, United Kingdom. So join me as I make welcome Mr. Omoniyi Modede, FCCA, ACA, MD Health. Mr. Omoniyi, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Caleb. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this network. First of all, I would want to appreciate the organizers for this opportunity to be part of this great movement. All the titles and accolades Caleb has mentioned is just they are just titles. My name is Omoniyi Modede, and I've known Caleb for a while now. We started university days together, and we've been in contact all since then. So it's been an exciting time. I've always known him to be very passionate, very hardworking. And I've consistently seen his strength around mentoring and coaching people and young ones to build the right future that we want for ourselves. And you're really lucky to have him as one of your coordinators. And I wish everyone to appreciate that opportunity to have him there. So quickly, thank you so much for having me. There will be less introduction since just try to be conscious of time, and Caleb has done most of all the things. Sorry, I call him Caleb. I'm sure, I don't know, because we are very, very close. So we could say Mr. Caleb. And so that's fine. Let me just quickly share my screen and we could just talk through our session today. It promises to be as interactive as possible. And one key thing I would want to encourage us is, personally, I love interaction. So I would want us to interact as best as possible. If you're able to see my screen, please let me know.
Yeah, your screen is clear. It's good.
Okay, thank you. Cool. So the purpose of this session is just to refresh our knowledge around account receivables and account payable, understanding a bit of the Nigerian realities, right? And as Mr. Caleb had mentioned earlier, I had a bit of experience working with both large and small scales. Most of my small scale business was with Nigerian and Co. And one of the ingenious firms we have in Nigeria, and it was really a very exciting time before I moved into the big four firms. So there are lots and lots of nuances within the Nigerian SMEs that we need to get ourselves. We just revise ourselves with and understand those realities. Then also we strengthen our advisory capabilities. As you are aware, we are professionals, and the business world will rely on us for insights, for knowledge sharing, for leadership thought, and we must also show that we know what we are doing when we advise them on the right process and the right things they need to do, so that the business will continue to strive. And also we look at some digital tools that we could use within our account receivable and account payable processes, some of which some of us are quite familiar with, that we are using currently. Some might be new things to us. We are not going to go into details. I'll just mention them. And I'm sure there could be other sessions where we could bring in resource people to deep into each of those tools that we use. Now, we just walk through a scenario, we worked a real case scenario. Then most importantly, we're going to be discussing and engaging through polls. So I'm sure we're all used Slido before. If you have not used Slido before, when time comes for poll questions, so I will guide us through. So this is just our objectives for today, and within the next 30 minutes, we should be able to discuss. And if you have any questions, you could always reach out. Now, let's take the first poll. But before we do, it's important for us to know that I think I would want to mention this earlier. Businesses function on account receivables and payables. There are no business in the world. There are no either SMEs, large scale multinationals. Every business functions on the ability for them to be able to manage their finances. And account receivable and account payables are the bane of the financial system within a business. So it's important for us to know. Now, so the first poll is, which area causes more financial stress for SMEs based on our individual experiences? Don't forget, it's just a refresher training. It's not an exam tutoring session or ICANN or ACCA tutoring session. It's just for us to interact and discuss. So it's refresher. Feel free to turn on your mic. Feel free to turn on your cameras. Feel free to use the chat box. It has to be interactive and engaging as possible. So quickly, now the first poll. So which area causes more financial stress for SMEs? We have, is it the account payable, the account receivable? Is it both, or we are not sure? Oh, so there's a typo there. Now, cool. Now, if you want to use a poll, you could scan a QR code or go to slide.com. Okay, we are using the chat box. We will use the chat box. I would like to use this live chat so we could see the percentages for each of them. If you're able to scan the QR code on the screen to join the Slido, there could be an active poll online. Are we able to do that? If you're not able, please let me know. Okay, we are able to. So I want to see responses. So it's going to be showing live. So let's scan the QR code. What area causes more financial stress for SMEs? Is it account payable? Is it receivable? Is it both? Or we are not sure? I would want us to be as interactive as possible. That's what's going to make this session quite engaging.
Yeah, the chat box, there are answers in the chat box.
Oh, okay. So we prefer to use the chat box. Okay. Someone has responded. I have one person has responded now, both. Okay. So in the chat box, I can see 3 responses, both. Okay. I would prefer to see the active football is fine so that I can be able to monitor our responses. So at the moment, we have 3 responses. We're saying both account receivable, account payable have causes a lot of financial stress to SMEs, and that is quite that's quite true. Okay, we also have another response in account receivables. Yes, that's so 67% is saying both, that 3% is saying account receivable. Cool. So we have 3 responses just now, and we have 18 people logged in. Okay, so not to waste our time. Okay, we have another response, account receivable. Now, if we have both, and so thank you for the responses in the chat box. Now I could see lots of responses in the chat box. So it seems both is dominating, and it's quite important that understanding what your account payable is, understanding what your account receivable is, both of them has different nuances, but a combination of them is what we call there's a working capital imbalance. When you are not able to manage your account payable, you are not also able to manage your account receivable, there's going to be an imbalance in your working capital. And we all know that where your working capital is not properly managed. So there is a terminology, there's an interesting chart I said, poor working capital results to a non-working business. That is, if you're not managing your working capital properly, definitely your business will be poor. So understanding that for some businesses, it is account receivable that is the main problem. That is, for example, I'm a service provider. I render services to several businesses. I don't have any input into what I use in producing. So in that instance, account receivable will be like, for example, the carpenters, the less skilled working class group, because those are also part of SMEs, right? So account receivable could be their main problem. While there are some businesses where they rely heavily on raw materials to be able to do their businesses, like the example cited by Mr. Caleb earlier, on the what's it called, selling of chips and the rest on the highways. Now, I was also private to that kind of a business growing up, so I understand what it is to get the raw materials for flour for the chin chin, to get the oil, to put all those things together, and to get suppliers to provide you with those at the right time, so that you can be able to produce or fry those chin chin or those plantains and get to the market even at the right time. So all this, right, affects the kind of the outcome or the growth of SMEs in Nigeria. So it's important that we are aware of this. And thank you so much for everyone that has responded. Now, in the Nigerian SME landscape, what are the critical characteristics? One, Nigeria is a cash-based economy. And this is based on the fact that if you don't have money, if you don't have cash, you are unable to do a lot of things. Because everyday cash exchange, physical, when I say cash, I'm not talking about bank transfers, I'm not talking about online transfer, I'm talking about real physical banknotes. So Nigeria is heavily reliant on banknotes to transact business. So as an SME owner or a proprietor or a staff or someone there, you should understand that you are going to be dealing with a lot of banknotes. That is the Nigerian stock system environment. And if you are not, if you don't have adequate internal controls to manage that type of risk, then you run a risk of people coming to steal those cash, right? Or people give you fake banknotes. So that is the kind of system we have in Nigeria, the SME landscape. And we also have weak credit culture in the sense that, unlike most advanced economy, where you could use your credit cards to buy things, you can do so many things on credit, and you can pay back on a monthly basis based on your salary. For example, if just for discussion purposes, right, someone could buy a car of £20,000 and agree with the auto trader that I'm going to pay in over 5 years, and they come to an agreement. You see the person driving that car of £20,000 and then start sending pictures, you won't know that it's on credit. So that credit system helps businesses, the turnover grows because of that culture. But in Nigeria, is the other way around. We don't have the only credit system is just all the little petty transactions that we do. There are no large-scale credit environment that could help businesses thrive. And that is one thing that I think the Nigerian government, the CBN, should try to encourage. Now, one other thing or feature of the Nigerian landscape is high borrowing cost. You see, small businesses get fund at high rate from the banks. Why? Majorly because they are high risky, no history of credit, and also the businesses might not have the right fundamentals. So the credit risk are always higher, and as a result of that, banks tend to give them at higher interest rates. So there's an high borrowing cost in Nigeria. And this actually stifles business because you tend to pay back those loans, you tend to pay back those costs, and you factor that into your cost of production, you factor that into your sales. At the end of the day, you only make marginal profit because there's also competition to deal with. So these are some of the criticalities of the Nigerian SME environment. Then one other thing is Nigerian SME environment is heavily reliant on manual processes. So because of these processes, there's usually poor documentation. It's also prone to fraud risk. People could perpetrate lots of fraud within a manual process. It's easy to change 3 to 8, right? So these are some of the things that SMEs or businesses grapple with in their day-to-day activities. There's also limited control, right? Because it's a one-man business. There's no maker checker environment. There's no one checking if things are done. So when there are limited internal controls, it poses higher risk, and there are issues around it. Then there's just a sake of time, there's also the regulatory context. You have your CAMA, you have your Finance Act that actually determines the kind of I would say the category of businesses should become, the type of registration, because you need to register with them, limited entity, sole proprietorships, and all those things that we need to consider or factor in when you're trying to set up an SME. Then there's also, for financial reporting purposes, there's an IFRS for SMEs. That is, you don't need to adopt the full IFRS requirement. You could definitely take section 11 and 12 of IFRS for SMEs that is peculiar to your business. So with that, you are also able to achieve your financial reporting requirement. And just quickly add, I think based on CAMA, there are certain small SMEs that are exempted from audit. That is, they're not expected to provide an audited account or file an audited account. But when you are trying to, but I think that has to be signed or some sort. So these are some of the realities of the Nigerian SME landscape. So I don't know if there's any question before we move on. Okay, now quickly. What's account receivable? In simple terms, account receivable is money owed by customer. That is very simple. You sell an item to a customer, and the customer said, okay, I'm going to pay you later. That money owed by a customer in financial terms is deemed to be account receivable. That is, it is expected to be received from a customer, and it's usually treated as an asset. And I'm sure we understand what an asset is, right? So then one key thing is that it is a key part of your working capital. It is very, very fundamental, and it has a direct impact on your liquidity. So the more liquid you are, the more able for you to do businesses, the more able for you to grow. So your account receivable, if there's any delay in your account receivable, it impacts both your operations because you are not going to be able to pay salary. It impacts your vendor payment. You're not going to be able to pay your suppliers. It impacts growth. So accounts receivable is very fundamental to your working capital. And it's also, in a simple term, it is your cash that is trapped outside the business. Does that make sense? It is your cash that is trapped outside the business. So you are not able to control that cash, but it is yours. And so it is important that we factor this in. We're still going to discuss that further when we're doing your working capital integration. So it's important that, and just let you know that if you have 10 million naira in account receivable, so that is that. So I'm getting a echo. Okay. Echo. Now, if you have 10 million naira in account receivable, so that is 10 million that the business cannot use. Does that make sense? So now, what are the core principles of account receivable? Number one, you must have a clear credit policy. Now, a clear credit policy prevents emotional credit decision, because business, we must, by all means, separate emotions from business. That is one other challenge we have as Nigerians when we transact business with our friends, or with our contemporaries, with our neighbors. We tend to treat it casual. We must prevent emotional decisions when it comes to your credit policy. It has to be clear. Everybody buying things from you or that you're selling to must understand that there is a 3 days, there's a 7 days, there's a 30 days window for me to pay. Or if I pay within 5 working days, there's a discount I get for early payment. So it has to be clear. Now, one other principle is customer vetting. It is not every Dick and Harry that you sell your item to. You need to understand your customer. You need to understand the customers that would pay. Understand your market. You must vet the right customer. It's not so. Like, for example, the distributor for, just for argument's sake, Lamborghini will not put his dealer shop in Okokomaiko or in Okota. So it's going to be in the right place where the right customers are there. So just because it's to avoid default, to avoid unnecessary risk, right, coming from such customers. Now, accurate and timely invoicing. You need to ensure that you invoice to your customers promptly. Avoid delays, avoid dispute, because if you don't issue your invoices, there could always be delays in receiving your cash. And if you also don't invoice the right amount, then there will always be disputes, back and forth argument on, okay, this amount I'm supposed to pay, this amount you're supposed to pay. That would definitely still keep your cash trapped outside of your business. Now, your account receivable aging analysis is important that we do this to be able to identify problem customers early. If there are certain customers that don't pay on time, you ensure that you don't sell more frequently to them, so that more of your cash is not trapped outside of your business. So the aging analysis will help you to identify this set of customers. Then it's also important that you have a structured collection strategy. How do you ensure that you collect most of your cash? Because it's important you do for your business to strive. Then the other piece is for financial reporting purposes. And that's why I put the last bit. bad debt provisioning. You know, in line with our conceptual framework, where we tend to be prudent in our financial reporting, we recognize that there are certain customers that would not pay, right? So we tend to make provisions for them. That's accounting, that's financial reporting. We're not going deal into that, but I'm quite sure that you understand that this is also fundamental to our account receivable management. Cool. Now, what are tools that we can use for account receivable, or what are tools and techniques that we use for account receivables? One, there are systems that help us with automated invoicing. Once inputs are done, the invoice is gone automatically to the buyer. They receive it in their mail to the right contact. Then we also have automated payment reminders. If there's 2 or 3 days to payment deadline, reminders are sent so that they don't miss those payments. Then one other key thing is we also have early payment discount, where you can encourage your customer to pay early, and they get 2% discount, 1% discount, 5% discount, depending on the quantity of what they buy. These are some of the tools that helps in managing your account receivable so that you don't have cash trapped outside of your business. Then one other important thing that people tend to overlook is escalation procedures. Now, what does this mean? When it comes to account receivable, your key contact person might be the operations manager or the operations team. Now, the operations team, they are just day to day going in and out of the business. Now, you must ensure that you have the contact of the finance manager or the contact of the CFO or the CEO, such that you are able to escalate to them to say, there's delay in your funds. Who do I speak with? How do we get this resolved? This is very fundamental also in management. You must know who to talk to in your customers to be able to get your funds back. Then some of the tools, we have the account receivable dashboard using Power BI or Excel. And there's also a free market I want to do. I think I saw a link from someone on the group, from one of the network that is maybe Savvy tool or so on LinkedIn. That is, if the person is also on the call, that's free advertisement. Please, you can reach out. That's a very good tool. So I'm doing a free advert now. That's a very good tool for your account receivable. So the person can also still drop that link after this session, so that people can go in and explore. It's a very good tool for your account receivable dashboard. Then we also have digital platform also, like Paystack, Remitter, then other accounting packages, QBooks and Sage have these functionalities where you can be able to track which customer is owing what, the aging analysis, and everything is done on one single dashboard to help you manage your funds. Now, any question on that? No. Okay. I'm just trying to be conscious of time. I'm very keen on interaction, but this team seems a bit quiet, on the quiet side. I don't know why, but it's fine. Now, poll number 2. Now, what are the main common cause of overdue receivables? What are the most common causes of overdue receivables? One, is it poor credit checks? Is it weak follow-up, customer cash flow issues, or disputed invoice? Which one is the most common cause of overdue receivable? We can go to the polls, or you can use the chat box, whichever. Waiting for responses. Thank you. Got the response. Poor credit checks. Yes. Very vital. Oh, just okay. Poor credit checks, customer cash flow issues. Yes. So currently it is poor credit check that is winning. Aikwada says poor credit check is the most common cause. Yes. Now, am I free to call on someone to quickly tell me why? Customer cash flow issues. Yes. Ejijola, you want to try? Ejijola. Ejijola, do you want to tell us why? Okay, you're mute. Okay, Faith, you want to say something?
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Faith.
Okay, I'll go for credit checks because if an organization has a business and they are dealing with customers on credit, I believe under their credit checks there should be policies covering how we are going to recover this money, how you're going to pay us this money back, what are the terms, what are the durations. So that should be under their credit check. So if you've not done that, you may not be able to get back your money on time because some customers may have the money and they'll use it for other businesses, they'll use it for their own businesses, they'll rather prefer to use it first for themselves before paying you. But if you've set that policy and you've made them know that this is how we are going to run these credits that we are having now, I think they're going to comply more than if you just allow them.
Thank you. Thank you. Someone is also raising their hands.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Good evening.
Yeah, go ahead, Ejijola.
Yeah, so speaking to poor credit checks, right? Like you had explained earlier while presenting, saying that your products are not necessarily meant for everybody, right?
Yeah.
As organizations, right, it is not enough to say, I want to generate revenue. Even as revenue are incurred on accrual basis, that does not, when you have like 80 to 90% of your revenue lying following receivable, that's already a big red flag, right? Meaning that for every customer you onboard, right, you need to do like an assessment of that customer. Assessment in the sense that liquidity, ability to pay back, right? And also as businesses, you can also, in order to get your receivable back in due time, you can do like maybe a free what's it called, discounts and the likes to get it back. But for the poor credit checks, basically one thing you need to check on as a business is the credit worthiness of whom you are selling to. That's the most important thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Now, does anyone have a real life experience based on where they're working at the moment? Just for me to gauge our experiences. Anyone want to share any real life experience? Okay. Now, for the essence of time, poor credit checks, as you rightly said, is the main cause, and you're right. In the UK, where I reside, right, you are not able to get certain things based on your credit score. So every individual, even businesses have a credit score, they have a credit history. So there's a lot of emphasis on credit check, your credit history, because that is a signal to your ability to meet up with your future obligations based on your past historical and financial commitments. So poor credit check is the main cause of overdue receivables both in Nigeria and globally, just because, and that's why in Nigeria there's a lot of work for us to do within the Nigerian SME landscape. For example, historical permanent residents of, we don't know, for like, just for discussion purposes, your customers, we don't do their for the use of word, right, where they stay for the past 5 years or 3 years. We don't know their permanent establishment. We don't just know we don't just give us their address, give us their utility bills, and that's all. So as a result of that, they are able to abscond with business funds. So it's important that there's proper credit checks. Yes, weak follow-up can also be part of it, and that is why, as I mentioned earlier, proper escalation can help reduce weak follow-up. Then, as Faith has also mentioned, customer cash flow issue, where they would definitely have those funds, but they would want to use it for their other personal businesses. So in those instances, those are manageable. But the only piece that is not manageable is poor credit checks, because if they don't have a good history, definitely their future ability to meet up with funds is quite questionable. Cool. Just conscious of time. Now, let's quickly go to account payable. Now, when we say account payable, these are obligations we owe to our suppliers, right? Now, one key thing I want us to know is that account payable is not just paying our bills. It's not just paying for raw materials. It affects our vendor relationship and supply chain. And what does this mean? If you want to continue to get raw materials on credit, you need to build a very good relationship with your supplier, such that you can call them early in the morning and they will supply goods to your warehouse the same day. However, there are some customers that will call you, can you supply this? Oh, you've not even paid one for last week. I can't supply. So when you are able to have that, if you meet up with your obligation as a fall due, you build a strong vendor relationship. It helps for you to have sufficient supplies to produce and for you to make up with your to continue your business. So lack or poor account payable management usually impacts strain, or it results into strained relationships with your vendors. You also be able to, you might not be able to take advantage of discounts because you are not paying on time, and you won't enjoy the early payment discount. So because we are now looking at the other side of the coin, where you are now the customer and you are expecting so let me quickly get the charger laptop before it goes dead. Okay. So now, what are the principles of account payable? One, you must also understand what we call vendor onboarding. Now, vendor onboarding is that we must ensure that we have the right supplier that will provide us with the right quality of raw materials we need. You won't just get any flour supplier because they are selling flour or because it's cheap. You need to get suppliers flour that is good for the kind of bread or the kind of chin-chin that you want to produce. So your vendor, as you have customer vetting, you also have vendor onboarding, just to ensure that you have the right vendor, the right supplier that has the right level of goods that can support your business objectives for you to be able to achieve your own strategic goals is quite fundamental. Then also you must be able to have good negotiation skills to manage your payment terms. Does that make sense? Now, if it's just balancing the other side of coin. If you are expecting to receive 10 million from your customer, and however you are expected to pay 20 million to your supplier, then you will need to borrow the additional 10 million to meet up with the shortfall. That's on the assumption that there are no other cash reserves. You are just looking strictly on account payable and account receivable. So most times it is important for us to be able to negotiate your timing of payment along with when you're able to get your funds. So there could be a balance in your working capital. Now, one other key thing is your invoice verification. Because of Nigerian environment, right, there could be suppliers that could supply invoices, or you could get your invoice for payment which are not genuine, right? And there's something we do, we call it three-way match. Now, so the three-way match is essential that helps us to prevent duplicate or fraudulent payments. Because someone can issue an invoice now, okay, you are expected to pay so amount without even supplying you with the right quantity, without supplying you with the right with the right type of product you've requested for, and you've issued your processed invoice and you've paid without doing a proper three-way match. When we say three-way match, I mean checking your purchase order with your goods received notes against the invoices, ensuring there's consistency across those three documents. Now, another principle is the account payable aging, which is quite fundamental to knowing when you need to pay and who. You can have 4 or 5 suppliers, right? If you have 4 or 5 suppliers, you need to know when individual of those suppliers are due to make payment to. If you have a supplier that is due in the next 1 month, you have a supplier that is due in the next 5 days. Your priority will be on the supplier that is due in the next 5 days, right? So your account payable aging analysis also helps you to understand that. Then your cash flow forecasting, knowing, okay, based on account receivable, this is when I'm expecting cash. This is when certain cash payments will be done, and this is when I need to pay. Helps us to avoid penalties and avoid unnecessary challenges, and saves us a lot of stress. And one thing I always encourage SMEs that we advise is it's important that payments are properly planned and you are not reactive. That is, you don't react, you are proactive, you are always planning ahead. Now, what are account payable tools? Similar to the tools we use for account receivable, you have your AP automation, you have your vendor portals where you could log on, do your three-way match and pay directly. Then you have approval workflow. So this approval workflow helps you to so you can initiate these workflows on your systems such that the three-way match is done and you have a maker checker internal control process in place, so that no one does the end-to-end of that account payable process and your funds are not going down the drain. Apologies, I'm trying to be as fast as I can because I have just 5 minutes based on the timing given to me. Now, what account payable issue do SMEs struggle with most? Just for the essence of time, poor documentation, lack of cash planning, manual process, weak vendor negotiation. Now, all these are fundamental problems with SMEs. But one important thing that we cannot do it with is, oh, someone said all of the above, bro. Yes, all of them are very, very important. All of them. Now, because if you don't plan properly for your cash, you are going to run into stormy water. Then if you are not very meticulous with records, with invoicing, with bookkeeping, they're going to have challenges. But I think within the Nigerian landscape, right, weak vendor negotiation is quite, because there are some businesses that will always pass on their cost to you. They'll just, because you are buying on credit, instead of them selling for 50 naira per pack, just for argument's sake. So because you are buying on credit, they'll sell it for you at 75 naira per pack. Now, they've made a margin of 25, even when they've not done anything. But if you are able to negotiate that, okay, what if I pay within 10 days? Can I pay 55 naira? So it's quite key that we are able to negotiate with our vendors. And we use that terminology, customers are always right. In this instance, we are the customers, so we must be able to negotiate properly and get the best deal out of the market. And okay, I wanted to cite an example. I was just very conscious of time. This is very important. Working capital integration. Now, we've spoken about account receivable and account payable. Now, this does not stand in isolation. You cannot manage account payable in isolation. You cannot manage account receivable in isolation, because both of them work hand in hand. They are the other side of the coin, the head and the tail. Makes one whole coin. And there is a very key terminology, which is the cash conversion cycle. Now, I wanted to ask earlier, that was one of my plans, but just quickly explain. So when we say cash conversion cycle, we are saying the number of days it takes us to convert our inventory to actual cash from sales. Now, inventory, that is where you get your raw materials to transform them to finished goods. How many days does it take you to transform it to finished goods? Now, how many days does it also take you to sell those finished goods and collect your money from customers? And how many days does it take you to pay your suppliers? That's how many days that the business expected you to pay for the raw materials you've gotten. Now, understanding your cash conversion cycle will help you a lot in managing your working capital. So it is both your account payable and your receivable and your inventory management decisions is what fits into your working capital integration, and is very, very fundamental. And as Ejola mentioned earlier, liquidity is very fundamental. So if you are not able to manage your cash conversion cycle problem, you will definitely have liquidity problems. And if you have liquidity problems, you will definitely have profitability problem. And when you have profitability problem, it's definitely a going concern problem. So can you see the trajectory of how businesses fail as a result of poor account receivable management, account payable management, and other wrong decisions? So it's important for us to be able to manage our working capital properly by properly managing account payable and account receivable. Now, there are usually short-term financial options where we call them, a typical example is invoice discounting. And this is common in most advanced societies, where I think even in Nigeria, where, okay, you're expecting your customer to pay you 10 million and you need cash urgently. That's receivable is an asset that can generate you future economic benefit. You just take it to a financing institute, a finance companies, you collect, you can sell that. So they call it debt factoring. You sell the debts to them for 9 million. You collect 9 million, you lose 1 million just to be able to, for you to be able to meet up your liquidity. They take the 10 million and go and chase the customer for 10 million. In that instance, two things you've been able to solve. One, you've solved your short-term liquidity problem. Then two, you've also saved yourself of the business times in chasing those customers. So these are ways for which we are able to manage our financial the liquidity position of the business. I'm just very cautious of that. Apologies, I have to rush through this. Now, mini exercise. Now, this is just for us to think through. In a scenario where you have your account receivable cycle of 75 days, you have account payable cycle of 30 days. Now, what strategies can we use to reduce the cash gap? I've mentioned one of them. That's the invoice discounting. Any other strategy, anyone? Please feel free to unmute and just mention that. Feel free to unmute. You don't need to raise up your hand and mention. Any other strategy for us to reduce our cash gap in this scenario?
Good
Good
evening.
evening to you.
Yes, Omoniyi, well done. Please, I've forgotten the nomenclature of that particular thing, but I can actually describe it.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
remember when I was working in one particular organization whereby we need money. So what we now did was that we now sell our finished goods to a multinational company. Though this multinational company is our client.
Okay.
So we do sell goods to them. So because of the fact that we need money, we have to sell a goods to them, like in a quantity, like they always demand for like 20 tons in a month. So we now ask them that because we need money, we now sell about 80 tons to them. They now give us money in advance,
Okay.
right? So as we receive the money in advance, we've already sold 80 tons to them. So they are now deducting it from the goods that we actually supply. I don't know the name they called it, I can't remember actually. But that's one of the strategy that we use in reducing our and improving our liquidity problem then. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's advanced. I think it's also on top of my head now. I can't really collect that term, but that's one of the very effective strategy, right? Where your supplier pay you upfront, and you supply them in bits based on the contract that you've had with them. So which is quite good. Thank you to Toyosi for that. Now, it's one of the things we call early payment incentives. But I'm quite sure that the price at which you have sold it to them will not be the same as the price when they are going to be in your numbers, because definitely they will have taken.
It was not. The price was actually reduced because they told us that we should rather go to the bank, because we knew that if you go to the bank will charge us interest and all
more
other
interest rates.
charges, everything. So it was at a reduced price actually.
Yeah, to be very reduced. So that's the early payment incentive that is taken. Cool. No, thank you so much for that. Just conscious of time. Now, what are the key internal controls that we need to put in place to ensure that we manage our account payable and account receivable properly? One, we have your segregation of duties, ensure that duties are properly segregated. Not just one person is doing end-to-end of the job. A maker-checker approval, there must be a proper approval process. Then enforce credit limit. Make sure that when you give funds to a customer, there's a limit to which the customer can get. If a customer is only has a monthly turnover of 10 million, and you give the customer a goods in a month of 20 million, that means you know that 10 million of your funds is trapped, and you might not be able to get that 10 million until maybe after 2 or 3 years, because the person can only do 10 million a month. So let's ensure that control is properly initiated. Vendor verification, then there must be fraud red flags. As part of our internal control, let's ensure that we, as in our role as professionals, that's what we should be taking back to our organizations to say that, yes, do you have red flags with our customers? Do you have red flags with our suppliers? Are there any pointers to which that they are perpetuating fraud? If there's any, we need to start pointing those out. Then let's ensure we have documentation and audit trail of what we do. Now, which area has the highest fraud risk? Account receivable or account payable? Anyone? Which area has the highest fraud risk? Account receivable or account payable? Now, as a business, your account payable is more subtle to fraud. Why? Because you tend to receive invoice. If you don't manage your invoicing properly, employees, individuals outside can always use those opportunities to perpetrate and make away with your funds. So account payable is the highest, is prone to high fraud risk. So it is important that that is properly managed, especially when it comes to invoicing. Now, what are the best practices for account receivable and account payable? Clear credit policy, the timing of invoicing, regular review of your aging, ensure it's properly reviewed. Then incentives for early payment, encourage your customers, encourage them to pay early, give them little incentives so that you don't run the risk of losing your business. Then ensure strong customer communication, you're having proper checks with them, go on site visits, go on customer visits, go on customer shows, ensure that they feel part of your business. Now, best practice for account payable management: ensure you're properly negotiating favorable terms, maintain vendor relationship properly, then prioritize payments strategically, understand which supplier needs to be paid what and when, so that you can appropriately manage your finances. Now, this is just a summary of what we've done today. Just conscious of time, we 3 minutes late. So one key thing we need to do is that we need to provide strategic advice. I would want to reiterate on this. That is our job as professionals. We are not just there to be ticking boxes or operational. Let our employers know the value of what they are doing to us. Then we can be able to sell ourselves more as a market. Then it's also important that we are not just record keepers. We are more strategic partners with our businesses. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. Cool. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Omoniyi Modede. Oh, thank you. I can't just stop thanking you. Thank you for bringing your resourcefulness, bringing your expertise, and bringing so much value to us. This is so much. Everybody on the call will agree with me, especially the interactiveness. This is the first time we're having this level of interaction. The interaction is so enjoyable. Personally, I just sat back and just enjoying the session. When you were saying, oh, the time, I was like, oh, I wish you can just continue. Continue. Of course, we have our schedules and we got to go. But left for me, I just wish this session can continue some more. Thank you so much. Thank you. I would also like to appreciate those who are really very key to the interactive, very sweet interactive session we have today. Mr. Toyosi Abayomi, very interactive. Thank you for those practical, the practical example you gave, and that's very, very apt and on point. Then Faith Oyo, Ejilola Adekunle, thank you for, and those of us that interacted with emojis and other ways. And I think there's a question in the chat box for you, Mr. Omoniyi. Somebody asked, there are a lot of shenanigans that happen. Okay, Abayomi is asking, there are a lot of shenanigans that happen between vendors and procurement units. How do we reduce such frauds? Then somebody also, okay, Ola Ogumefun also said, kindly share the presentation slide. Thank you for the presentation. Then another, okay, still Toyosi Abayomi, say, how do you reduce the fraud? How do you reduce the fraud, especially from procurement units? So you may want to answer those questions. And I think somebody, okay, Samuel Soyoye has his hand up. Okay, I think we are not done yet. This session, it's like I'm getting my wish. So it's like we still have to continue for some minutes.
Okay. So I'll take the first question from Toyosi. There are lots of questions. People are raising up their hands. Okay. Now, that's fine. We might not be able to exhaust all the questions, but please feel free to reach out to me on my WhatsApp, on LinkedIn, and email. That's why I'm sharing my screen again, so you could pick that up. I will also share the slides to Mr. Caleb, and I'm sure we'll share that across. Now, how do you reduce fraud, especially from procurement units? Very critical, there must be an automated system where there's a reduction in manual involvement. Now, computers are not, they don't, I would say it's garbage in, garbage out. So they are not able to think with that kind of mindset. So for us to reduce fraud, I'm quite very sure, Mr. Toyo will say that it is one of the headaches of most SMEs, especially the procurement team. The only thing we could do is ensure we have a proper automated system. That's one. Then secondly, vendors could always inflate prices where procurement units can agree with the vendor, okay, put additional, because Nigerians, I know how it operates, right? Increase your price to 50 naira instead of 20 naira, and we share it. Yes. In that instance, your vendor onboarding would have addressed it by ensuring that the right vendor with the right business mind that is trustworthy, that boasts on integrity, are involved. So it's when you're onboarding your vendor that you'll have been able to achieve that. And definitely we can't always, those things are common. I won't say they are normal, I would say they are common because they are not good. They send the wrong feedback to us. So, but it's important that we automate our systems, we ensure we have the right onboarding of our vendors. And when you are doing your onboarding, there should be an open bid. I'll give you a practical example. When I was at Ijewewe, I used to manage all vendors and the rest. And it is important that every month, anything you're trying to buy, there's an open bid. Everybody go to the market, come with your pricing, you tell us how much you're going to sell, 4 or 5 people. Then there's a board to decide who we are, of the customers we are buying from. In that instance, you have the contract, you have an agreement that is clear, and you're able to negotiate with them straightforward. So once you do that, then you put your internal controls in place, the system is automated, then that would avoid a lot of all this. Definitely there will always be in and out, they will always find their way around it, but that will reduce their ability to do that. Instigating a three-way match. I think there was one piece I actually mentioned earlier. Using of approval workflows properly. All these are just automated. I think it can be, that will reduce a lot of fraud. If that's quite helpful, Mr. Toyosi. Then the journalist also raising up his hand.
We should take Mr. Samuel Soyoyi before, because it's the first time he's engaging in this session. So,
Okay.
Samuel, please.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for the session. I really appreciate it, sir. It was quite insightful. So my question is that we talked about that as an SME, we need to have a good supplier relationship. Yes, and so that we can actually get our business running. So I want to ask that in a situation whereby over the years an SME have had a good credit rating, or let me say good credit and behavior with the supplier, and maybe due to circumstances beyond the control of the entity, they happen that maybe at a point in time what they got from their supplier
So go ahead. I can hear you, Mr. Samuel.
um maybe let me say quite like dependent or
I think he is having some issues with his network. Okay,
business.
so
So what do
I
you
think we may
think
have to go. Okay.
an SME can do? Thank you, sir.
Okay, I didn't hear his question properly.
Okay, I was saying that in a situation whereby a business has a good credit rating with the supplier, whereby over the years there have been like a good flow of goods from the supplier to the business. So, and the supplier, to a greater extent, the supplier can beat their chest that, oh, this business will actually pay whatever amount of goods that they bought. Let's say a supplier relationship that have lasted for about 20 years or even more than. So in a situation whereby at a point in time an incident occurred that is beyond the control of that business, whereby they were unable to pay the debt they owe. So in that situation, will the supplier still continue, maintaining that kind of relationship, or will they back out of it? I
Okay.
don't know if I'm clear.
Yeah, I understand your question, Mr. Samuel. And I mentioned this earlier, right? One of the challenges we have as individual is we mix emotion with business. Right. Now, if a business fail, it doesn't mean your business should also fail. If you have a customer that has been consistent over time and they've always paid, but due to economic realities, they are falling short of your of payment. Yes, it is normal. What you need to do is come to a round table, have a conversations with them. These are the realities. How can we restructure your payment plan? If we are supplying in you 30 tons of granite before and you are finding it difficult to sell them, why don't we scale back and supply you 10? So that you do those small businesses, it's just a matter of negotiation. You also want their best interest at heart, but that doesn't mean that because you are a good Christian or a good Muslim or a good Afar, you want their business to survive, to strive at the expense of your own business. Don't forget I said if you have receivables out there, that's cash out of the business that you are not able to use. So if you have an asset that you are not able to use, that's a big problem. So it's also affecting you such that you are not also able to service other customers. So that's how I wanted to look at it, right? The best you can do is negotiate with them a lower sales until they are able to come up with the ability to go back to normal business. So let's always remove emotions from our businesses.
All right, thank you so much. Let's have Mr. Ejilola quickly because we've gone way past our time. Mr. Ejilola, please unmute and ask your question. It looks like Mr. Ejilola is not there.
I'm
All right,
here.
so
I'm here.
okay,
Sorry.
okay, go ahead and
The
ask your
the
question.
hand was still basically the one I used in answering the previous question.
Okay.
Apologies.
All
Thank you,
right,
Mr.
so
Omoniyi.
okay, thank you so much. All right, so we have come to the end of the session. You can agree with me. This is a very, very, very important aspect of accounting. In fact, sometimes I just get to some job sites and I see many requests, posts on account receivable, account AR, AP accountants, always recurring, meaning that there's need for accountants like this. And if you just listen to this session alone, you will not only do well, you'll be able to understand because the resource person has made it as simple as can be for you to understand and even level up something. Of course, it's not everything you can pick from here, but this is a panacea, a basis, a rich basis at that to really do well in this aspect. Then on the other flip, those of us who service SMEs, it's beyond the financials. These are one of the things that inform the financial health of any entity. So if you come in as being providing service to SMEs and you are giving this as additional service to preparing to helping in audit functions and accounting functions, you know that you're going to be not retaining those customers, you're going to be getting more in terms of referrals. So there's a lot of value in it. And I always say something that thank God we always have this on records and it will be available to everyone, especially those who are not able to make this session. So once again, I'd like to thank our resource person for being available and for being so excellent in delivering to us all these values. Thank you so much, and I want to thank everybody, especially those who made it, who helped who co-joined the resource person to make it very interactive and very friendly session. Thank you so much, Mr. Toyosi Abayomi, Fit Oyo, Ejilola Adekunle. Thank you so much. So on that note, we're going to end this session. I'd like to say, do have a great, an excellent, productive week ahead, and a good night rest tonight. Thank you so much.